Hey everyone. So once again, I uh, I just had like a really great morning, and what it enabled me to do was to say so much, so many things that were insightful that I started to regret not recording this, and I went and got the phone. So the last thing that I said was I was imagining that I was speaking to a school board. I was imagining that I was speaking to a group of educators, and I was trying to make the case that alignment is critical, whether we are growing and developing or if we're declining, which occurs once that innate energy, that innate metabolism, that innate genetic want to replicate slows. And slowly but surely, over the course of the rest of our life, 70, 60, 40 years, at some point, that decline becomes increasingly precipitous. How do we stave that off? How do we develop a system, a physiological system capable of resisting the force of decline, which is to say the force of entropy, the force of gravity that is pulling on us, even when nothing is touching us? The mere fact that cells are metabolizing, our heart is beating, each one of those has a lifespan. Your heart only has so many beats in it. But if you are breathing completely, if you are moving and gesturing in such a way that every movement is somehow synergistically enriching your central nervous system, that's the perfect way to die. If it's the perfect way to die, that means it's the perfect way to live. Some part of our lives must integrate this method by which we take all of our stresses, we take all of our regrets, all of our triumphs, and all of the things that are in mind that are holding us back. We take them all. Grab them all up. And we let them go. Just grab all that stress, all that pain. And we let it go. So this is closing and opening. They're still a part of us. They're still in our experience. And again, you're still going through that process of grazing the body and then creating these concentric tracing tracks. This is why the analogy of each point on the body being a section of its own roller coaster, that your movements in this three-dimensional world are directing and composing. You compose your movements just like you compose music, or you compose a set of words and ideas into a phrase, into a paragraph, into something that moves you. That's the vibration. That's the the synthesis of stresses and reasons for stresses and societal experiential exchanges of energy that if they're not interrupted, they explode in a mass shooting, in a terrorist attack. It is obvious. The more you look at, the more deeply you understand how psychology and how the atomic theory impacts our psychology and hormonal relationships and circadian rhythms, and you discover the power of genes and geography to influence human consciousness. We're taking the best from our religious, theological studies. We're taking the best from militarism, nationalism, the linearity of that. We're taking the best from music, because the best music is coming from curves that work with strings that are in lines. That's the change. We're all musicians in that sense. It's just an exchange of energy. By merely existing, your cells and your DNA is rearranging all the energy that you take in, whether it's from the food you drink, the food you eat, the fluids you drink, the air you breathe. You are the summation of that, and you are uniquely you. Your space in this world has been unique. There's no way that anyone or anything can take that away from us. And that's the magic of the human experience. But conformity, not to the culture, not to not to anything but you. And a study of gravity and its effects on this dynamic physiological system of you. That's all your cells are being repaired. All of them are processing energy right now. Every thought is using the energy that you consumed, I don't know, a couple days ago maybe. I'm not quite sure how long that digestive process and those electrons, I'm not sure how quickly they're in the system. I'm not sure how quickly that energy from the warehouse is used to fire that neural command to that other source. It goes so deep, but the human mind can conceptualize that. If you can use a smartphone, you can be astonished by these facts. And that's what I think everyone needs to, the government or some different institutions need to synthesize a curriculum that can be put in a pamphlet and handed out, helping young people synthesize the sense of shame for prior cultural, civilizational acts of villainy, slavery, genocide. I thought I had life figured out because I felt as if I understood religion. I understood power. I understood geopolitics. It's as if I started out as a realist, and as I've grown older, I've become more of an idealist. There's always got to be a combination of both. But maybe that was one of the reasons why I was living such a self-destructive life. Because that ratio, I was too much of a realist, I was too much of a cynic. And that diminished my focus and interest and concern about my future. Thus, it was this all the time. But I wasn't aware of that, so I was still goal-oriented. So, whenever I was working hard to be successful, as it was defined. I didn't know. And there's a lot of other people out there who don't know that they don't know. I see them. And the failure to synthesize a solution for them is, I guess, motivating me in some way to systematize and to show the multiple variations on how we can move, how we can allow ourselves to become centered, and aligned to the sides, and centered again. Now, go 5 degrees off of that with your feet. Go 5 degrees off of it with your shoulders. But go 5 degrees to the opposite side with your eyes. Go 5 degrees to one side with your tongue. Now, take your hand and, the integration of multiple points of awareness that arises from some stability, some level of intense stabilization, positionally, with a kind of a sequence of muscles that are being contracted. But there's going to be a time for this. You've got to be like the Nutcracker. Think about all of the militaries that are paraded. They're doing the opposite of what the curving animal would do in nature. The first thing you stabilize is your breathing. The animal breathes through its nose. You have to strengthen the animal before these higher levels of cortical, not development, because they're developed, but it's a refinement. There's a synergistic refinement, and if you aren't doing this, that's the potential that you still possess. I handicapped myself for so long. All of these unique techniques for activating the other side of my brain to have greater balance in this thing, and whether it's writing.